Yes guys, welcome back to the FPL Fan Show. My name is FPL Nacho and this is a new series dropping on the channel, FPL Showdowns. I'm delighted to be bringing this new series as I really think it is going to be a real help to you guys as FPL managers selecting which player to target. So what is FPL Showdowns? Well, each video I'm going to be picking 3 matchups and these are going to be players from either the same team or similar positions who I think in this upcoming game week are players that we should be considering, but which one to target. So in this video we're going to be doing Jamie Vardy versus Iheanacho. Which Leicester forward should we be targeting? We're going to be looking at the Brentford duo Mbeumo versus Toney, both playing in different positions. Is there one that should be a priority on our list? And we'll also be looking at the Southampton striking pair, Armstrong versus Broja. At 5 million, Broja has emerged as a potential option, but should we be targeting him over Armstrong, or should we be completely forgetting the Southampton front line? So that is all to come in this video, guys. But as always, if you want to support the channel, be sure to hit that like button and smash that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments if you are enjoying this new series. So without further ado, let's have a look at these FPL Showdowns. Okay guys, so in our first FPL Showdown, we are looking at Jamie Vardy versus Kelechi Iheanacho. Now, this matchup is very interesting right now. Of course, off the back of yesterday's news of Lukaku's injury, we don't know the full extent of it right now, but it has made Jamie Vardy a viable option for game week 9. Of course, with the injury to Lukaku, a lot of people might be looking to move away from Lukaku to Vardy, save themselves a bit of cash, but at 7 million, Iheanacho is posing a real great alternative to Jamie Vardy, and I want to look at the two here. So I have been gratefully gifted the opportunity to use the stats and graphics from fantasyfootballfix.com, so be sure to head over to check them out, as I have 2 shot maps here on screen of both Vardy and Iheanacho, and I really want to have a look at it right now. Now, it's difficult to compare the two right now so far this season. The reason being is because Jamie Vardy has currently played 711 minutes in comparison to Iheanacho's 264 minutes. Now, Vardy leading the way right now, the highest scoring forward in the game, on 56 in comparison to Iheanacho's 23 points. So again, as I mentioned, very difficult to compare the two as FPL assets based on their current minutes, but I really do think that it is a talking point that we need to have right now because of the 3 million saving or more that you can make on bringing Iheanacho into your side. I really think that it makes Vardy versus Iheanacho an interesting conversation. Now, when we look at the underlying stats for both right now, 23 shots for Jamie Vardy in comparison to Iheanacho's 9 attempted assists for Jamie Vardy in comparison to the 6 of Iheanacho. Now, I think that's quite an interesting one there. As I mentioned, Iheanacho has played probably about a third of the minutes as Jamie Vardy, but what we do associate Iheanacho with in comparison to Jamie Vardy is coming deeper into the midfield, picking up the ball and actually bringing players into the game. Jamie Vardy, of course, as we know historically, is more of the last man kind of player, getting in behind the defences, and Iheanacho is more likely to be the one to be creating opportunities for the team. So I'm not surprised at all that the attempted assists from Iheanacho was so close to Jamie Vardy with so little minutes played, and I would fully expect if they both played the same amount of minutes for him to be completely exceeding Jamie Vardy in regards to attempted assists. Now, because both players of course have played such different minutes in comparison to one another, I've decided to have a look at the actual average statistics per 90 minutes to really get a grasp on how each other are performing against one another. Now, of course, as I mentioned, Jamie Vardy is the highest scoring forward right now in the game, and over 90 minutes he is averaging 0.89 goals in comparison to Kelechi Iheanacho's 0.34, which I fully expect. And as I mentioned, I think Iheanacho is naturally more of a complete player than Jamie Vardy in terms of an FPL asset for both goals and assists. Jamie Vardy, I would always expect him, even if Iheanacho played the same amount of games as Vardy, to be exceeding him in the goals department. When we look at the expected goals per 90, Jamie Vardy currently leading the way on 0.47 in comparison to Iheanacho's 0.31. So again, really good stats here for both players, and what I like to see here is Iheanacho isn't a million miles away from Jamie Vardy, but as I mentioned again, such a small sample size to judge off here right now. But what I really do like the look of is Iheanacho's average shots per 90 is 3.07 in comparison to Jamie Vardy's 2.91. So again, Really good stats for Iheanacho, and while he's exceeding Jamie Vardy in this one, Vardy isn't too far away. So again, very close against one another. We have to remember that we are saving ourselves almost 3 million with Iheanacho. And again, as I mentioned, I was expecting Iheanacho to be leading the way for the assists and the creativity side of things, and that is definitely the case over the average of 90 minutes. Iheanacho goal assists 0.68 in comparison to Jamie Vardy's 0.13, and expected assists, as I mentioned, 0.32 per 90 for Iheanacho in comparison to Jamie Vardy's 0.08. So that completely justifies the clarification and the assumption that Iheanacho is a bit more of a creative player in this Leicester side. And I think that goes without saying. Whoever watched the Europa League saw that he was creating opportunities for Daka as well as Jamie Vardy in the Premier League. So definitely somebody who can offer more value than just goals. So when we look at this showdown here, guys, what is the conclusion? Well, I think it's safe to say that Jamie Vardy is the safer option of the pair. Iheanacho offers brilliant alternative at his value. However, with minutes being potentially managed alongside the likes of Daka, maybe even the likes of Maddison going into a further field or Harvey Barnes sharing minutes, I think Iheanacho is an excellent differential. And if you need to save your cash somewhere, I think he could be a nice option. However, Jamie Vardy offers the protection of guaranteed game time, set pieces, and as I mentioned, underlying stats are still exceeding Iheanacho for the vast majority of these underlying stats. So while I think saving money is a great option, if you are sat there right now on the likes of Lukaku and you're looking to come down into a potential Leicester asset, I really don't think that you need to go all the way down into Iheanacho. Now, it's worth mentioning if in a few game weeks' time, when Antonio might not necessarily become as an attractive option, Iheanacho could be a brilliant downgrade from Antonio. So my conclusion is Jamie Vardy is going to win this showdown, but Iheanacho is certainly one to keep on the radar, especially as an Antonio owner over the coming game weeks. Okay guys, the next FPL showdown is going to be the Southampton duo Adam Armstrong versus Armando Broja. Now, anyone who doesn't know, Broja came onto the scene last game week. He had a few minutes previously, but really came onto the scene in game week 8 with a goal against Leeds and the winner, of course, in that 1-0 victory, and priced at 5 million, really showing himself as a potential budget FPL pick for those managers that really want to save a bit of cash in their squads. He is looking like an excellent option, and in particular because of the Southampton fixtures that are coming up, we know that they are top for many of the attack difficulty ratings, and with Southampton still not establishing themselves with a number one forward, competition for places is as aggressive as anywhere else in the league. And I really think there is a great opportunity for Broja to stamp himself as a starter in this Southampton side, very similar to how Livramento did at the start of the season with his transfer from Chelsea, of course Broja being a Chelsea academy prospect. And Adam Armstrong is playing most of the minutes in the Southampton team, currently featuring in 614 of those minutes this season, comparison to Broja's 168. So it's safe to say that Adam Armstrong has been the go-to guy in the Southampton team, but with only 21 points so far this season, really hasn't really made himself concrete as that number one forward over the coming game weeks. And what we have here, guys, is the touch map so far for both players. Now, it's worth noting that the discrepancy between both in their minutes is very vast. I think 500 minutes game time in comparison to the two. So the touch maps are very, very difficult to judge because of Broja's minimal minutes. So I want to focus mainly on Adam Armstrong here because Broja is the talk of the town right now. I want to discuss Adam Armstrong, whether he is even somebody we should be considering as an FPL asset over the coming game week. So of course we need to ignore that big red touch map in the middle, of course, because Southampton conceded a few goals and clearly his touches are not significant enough to justify a red spot anywhere else on the pitch. So clearly Southampton needs to get Adam Armstrong in better spots. But when we do look at the touch map here, we can see that he is getting into some great spots in and around the box. Really promising here in terms of the touches within the box. And really, when we look at his underlying stats, 21 shots in 600 odd minutes is decent underlying stats for a forward that is playing in a team like Southampton. Now, compare that to Broja, who of course has only played 160 minutes. He has had 8 shots in comparison. So for those minutes in particular, these are very impressive stats for someone like Broja. And we're going to come on to the average statistics per 90 in a minute, as that will really give us a gauge on how both players are performing so far this season. But I think it's safe to say that the general consensus over Adam Armstrong has been that he is got the underlying stats there to justify himself as a good option around that 6 million striker price bracket. But the actual output for him really hasn't been there yet as an FPL asset, and that is the concern for a lot of managers right now, not getting the actual output to put their confidence in investing in an asset like Adam Armstrong. And as we mentioned, the fixtures coming up are brilliant. Burnley at home, Watford away, Villa at home, and Norwich away in their next 4. So it does feel like if there ever is a time to go in on a Southampton attacking asset, it would be right now. So when we look at the average statistics per 90, this is where I really want to look into, because it gives us a comparison about Broja versus Adam Armstrong with some detail that we can actually do, because again, if we do compare general minutes, Adam Armstrong is going to batter him in every department, of course. So goals is 0.54 per 90 for Broja in comparison to Adam Armstrong's 0.15. So again, in the minutes that Broja has been operating for Southampton, he has been very, very efficient. Now, this is such a small sample, we cannot judge it based on this, but we can only use the information we have, and he is doing very well in the minutes that he is on the pitch. And another really, really good telling stat is the expected goals, 0.65 for Broja in comparison to 0.26 for Adam Armstrong. So again, really good underlying stats of Broja, and suggesting that the goals that he has been scoring aren't necessarily flukes. He's getting into great areas on the pitch. And the shot volume, we spoke about Adam Armstrong's shot volume being very impressive for an asset at his price range, while Broja has averaged 4.29 shots per 90 in comparison to Adam Armstrong's 3.08. So really great underlying stats here for Broja, and again, justifies him being a brilliant option in this 5-minute price bracket. Now, I think the big question right now is Broja going to get minutes in this Southampton team? And I really think that is the issue right now. We touched on Adam Armstrong being the main go-to guy over the recent game weeks, alongside Adams, of course, who's recently been ruled out injured. Not sure on the time frame for him. But with Adams, with Adam Armstrong, with Stuart Armstrong to return into the side, I really don't think Broja is necessarily going to be a guaranteed game time pick for your squad. So at 5 million, I think is a good investment if you want to have a third striker who you can occasionally play from time to time, but I feel like he might become a difficult own, as you feel like you're going to want to start him every game week, and he could become an asset that only gets 15, 20 minutes off the bench without the opportunity to really impact the game. So I think Broja, unfortunately, is an avoid, but this is, of course, is a comparison series, so we need to compare the two. And I'm going to play the wild card here and say that I would avoid both of these players right now. And I know it's a bit of a cop-out sitting on the fence, but although Southampton's fixtures are great, I still don't have the confidence to invest in either of these players at their price points. Therefore, I think that avoiding both of these players is the best opportunity right now, but particularly having Broja on that watch list is a great move over the coming game weeks. Okay, last up, guys, we're going to compare the Brentford duo Mbeumo versus Toney. Now, this is a very interesting comparison and probably the best of the bunch right now. And this is mainly because both players have been consistent performers in their respective teams for the course of the season. So we don't have to worry about per 90 minutes. We can look directly at the underlying stats. We can look at the touch and heat maps and give us a real good overview on both players. Now, it's worth noting as well, Mbeumo is actually classified as a midfielder in the game. Toney classified as a forward. So this is a very interesting debate here. And the main reason I wanted to bring it up, because a lot of managers are looking at the Brentford fixtures coming up, which are very, very favourable for the attacking assets, and wondering which asset to go for first, let alone doubling up on those, which I still think is a brilliant option going forward, because Toney currently 6.4 million, Mbeumo 5.5 million, some brilliant value. And when there's premiums in the game with the likes of Trent, there's Man City and Chelsea defenders, of course Salah, and some premium forwards, we need to save ourselves some money along the way, and these two assets provide us that exactly. So I'm going to be looking at which one I think you should target first if you are looking at bringing in a Brentford midfielder, of course forward. So right now, players have played very similar minutes. Mbeumo 685 minutes in comparison to Toney's 720 minutes, and Toney slightly leading the way on 33 points in comparison to Mbeumo's 29. So very, very close as assets go. And I've decided to bring up the shot maps here to compare the two. And that's mainly because both players are playing in the exact same position in real life. Now, of course, I mentioned Mbeumo is classified as a midfielder on the game, Toney as a forward. But when we look at the shot maps here for both players, you would think that both are classified as forwards. And this is why the beauty of Mbeumo is a brilliant FPL option. Now, of course, playing as a midfielder gets an extra point for a goal and an extra point for a clean sheet. And when we look at the shot map here, we can see that he is picking up some unbelievable positions in the box to have his shots. And I would argue that these are even better than Ivan Toney's positions in the box. Now, Mbeumo has had 19 shots in comparison to Ivan Toney's 18. And Ivan Toney has had slightly more attempted assists on 11 in comparison to Mbeumo's 8 attempted assists. And when we look at the actual underlying stats, this is where it gets really, really interesting. Now, both have scored 2 goals apiece, but it's worth mentioning that Ivan Toney, being on penalties, of course, had that penalty goal earlier on in the season. That is going to sway him for many managers because of the set piece potential. But when we look at these underlying stats, it shows how much of an impressive asset Mbeumo is, getting these without even having set pieces. And of course, for those that don't know, Mbeumo is leading the way in the league for the most times hitting the woodwork on 6. Unbelievable. Hit 2 against Chelsea and could have had plenty more goals across the course of this season. And this is shown here in the expected goals. 3.07 for Mbeumo in comparison to 1.83 for Toney. And of course, this is including the penalty for Toney. So really showing that Mbeumo is very, very much ahead of Toney right now for the expected goals. And as I touched on, the shots are very close, but Mbeumo being much more efficient at picking up better areas than Toney right now. And I think when we do see the actual eye test of Brentford, you can see that Toney is very much more the dominant player in regards to aerial duels and dropping deep to pick up the ball. And Mbeumo is much more encouraged to get in behind the defence and use his pace. And this is something we want to see, especially a player that's playing out of position in the likes of Mbeumo. And again, as I mentioned, in terms of creativity, this kind of suggests this because when we look at Ivan Toney, expected assists is 2.49 in comparison to Mbeumo's 0.41. So it's worth mentioning here that while Toney is on set pieces and is also a goal threat, he also is the main creator in this Brentford team in comparison to Mbeumo, who we would argue is just more of a goal threat in comparison to a rounded asset. So when we look at these two, I'm going to come to a bit of a conclusion here because this is the whole point of the series, of course. And I really do think that because of his set pieces, because of the value in forwards this season, I still think Ivan Toney is one of the better picks to go for just because of that potential of the penalties. And when we have premiums in the game, like the likes of Lukaku, Vardy's and Antonio's, coming down into a 6.4 million option just frees up those funds and saves you wasting a transfer if you go to the likes of Hwang or even Broja at Southampton. But if I had to pick one right now, based on these underlying stats, based on the value at 5.5 million, I think I would go for Mbeumo. Playing in the same position as Toney, and as I mentioned, much more the player who's encouraged to get on in games. I think that if I didn't own a Brentford player right now, Mbeumo would be my go-to guy. So he's going to be the one that wins the showdown here, but I fully back managers going for the double up over the coming game weeks because of Brentford's favourable run-in over the next 5 or 6 game weeks. Right guys, that is going to draw an end to today's new series, FPL Showdowns. I really hope that you guys have enjoyed this new series, something that we're going to be doing each game week and hopefully picking up 3 groups of players and picking the best assets. So guys, let me know in the comments. Obviously game week 10 we're going to be doing this. Let me know some early thoughts on 2 players that you think are very, very close and we need to decide and debate on this show. So let me know guys in the comments. And as always, if you did enjoy it, be sure to hit that like button, smash that subscribe button. And with 3 or 4 videos dropping a week, you don't want to be missing a thing. So hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing, guys. I just want to say a massive shout out for supporting the channel so far. Really appreciate the engagement on the previous video. And hopefully we can have the same going forward. So have a great game week, guys. I'll be back tomorrow with my team selection video. So you don't want to miss that, of course, with the recent Lukaku injury. And we will talk about potential replacements and thoughts. So I'll see you guys next video. Take it easy. Cheers.